this is WUPX 91.5 FM HD1 Marquette. This is the Jack and Dom Radio Show. Jack, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. How about you? Happy Monday, by the way.
Well, yeah, thank you. School's obviously starting to wrap up a little bit, but also the weather. The weather's pretty good as fall, but it is what it is. But that being said, as we always do, the opinions said in the show do not represent the opinions of this radio station or the university. That being said, good evening, everyone. We got some nice things to talk about, a bunch of good things, some bad things as always. Our women's soccer team are, for the second time in a row, GILEAC Conference champions. If our women can win at least a few postseason games in the NCAA tournament, I will place them S tier.
Given the way our other teams are playing, though, I think just by winning a conference championship, you should automatically get access.
Well, the reason why I bring this up is because last year I put them A tier because they lost the first game of the postseason.
I'd say you got to win one to be S.
I gotta win one postseason. Yeah, at least, considering
how standards, winning one playoff game is a hell of a lot more than most of our teams have done in a hot minute.
Yep. Did we win the regular? I think we won the regular season.
Correct. Yes.
And then we won the tournament. In pretty fantastic fashion, multiple goal leads on each game.
Yep.
Some just straight up blowouts.
What a performance by them.
Yeah, it was a very good performance.
Only the rest of our athletic teams were performing as good as they are.
Well, speaking of that, our football team...
it's the weekly long side.
It's the weekly long side. Finishes the season 0-11, losing to Wayne State 30-14. For a... drum roll, please. School record, 22 game losing streak.
Oh boy.
We're just about halfway there to the all-time Division II losing record.
Dare I say, the way we're trending, we might actually hit that.
Maybe. We finish off the season with a negative 279 point differential.
Oh boy. I don't know what to say about this team anymore. The thing we're most excited about is that we almost beat Davenport because we were winning for like one quarter.
For like one hot minute, yeah, it was down by 7.
Our hats on. Okay. I guess we're just okay with losing 22 straight games, guys.
Well, we don't have to suffer anymore.
We'd lose 20 straight this season if there were 20 games to lose.
Oh. Yeah.
We're practically 0-12, though, because even our 12th man is losing because people aren't really going to the games anymore with how we're performing. So, unofficially, I feel like when your fans start dropping out like flies, you become 0-12.
Well, I remember after the Ferris game, I was walking down that large hallway between the PEEF and the Superior Dome, and some of the Ferris State players were walking down there because that's where their visitor locker room is located. Yeah. And I was just joking around with them saying, hey, you guys should just join the FCS and leave us alone. And they were laughing. They were saying, well, you should join Division III and leave us alone. I'm like, we got other good sports. We don't want to take away their scholarship.
Football really should be demoted to D3, but
that's gonna break all of our other sports because we would be forced to.
I'm kidding. In all seriousness, though, we need to play better than a D3 team. We're playing. Well,
actually, wait, hold on. We could go, the football team could go D3 because it has to be.
It won't happen.
Well, it would because there's the NCAA rules regarding what teams you can have at what particular division, and the football and basketball team has to be the floor. You can't have anything else below that. You can have anything else above it. So, like, our hockey team and alpine skiing is Division 1.
I don't know. I think, like...
Would basketball be forced to join Division 3 if the football team did?
Probably, but regardless, they need to stop playing like a D3 team. Hell, they're playing like a D4 team. I don't even think there's such thing.
There isn't.
So maybe
It's called high school.
Well, they are playing like a high school team.
Yeah.
Constantly fumbling, bad coaching, unmotivated players.
Well, there are some pretty good high school teams. I know IMG Academy is.
We're not
always really
IMG
good.
Academy. We're more like one of my old schools that consistently goes like 3-8.
What was that? What was that fake high school that played IMG Academy?
That's us.
But what was it called? Bishop Sycamore?
Bishop Sycamore, yeah.
Yeah,
we are Bishop Sycamore.
We're Bishop Sycamore of the Gilead.
We are the laughing stock of
Division
D2.
Yeah.
It's like a team goes to Northern to play them, and they're like, okay, it's our bye week, guys. Enjoy.
There was a Ferris State official or someone who worked for Ferris State who said that it's like homecoming.
It kind of is. Because if the free win, you can go travel up to the UP and have a good time, knowing that you're going to win by 30.
Yeah.
It's sad. We are very much a laughingstock of the Gilead.
Well, that being said, the nightmare is over. But,
thank God.
But that being said, the streak continues on to next year if we lose more games.
Next year, like, it's already unacceptable. But next year, like, we got to start going to games with bags on our heads because
the paper bags.
For goodness sakes.
Someone already did. I think I told you, in the Ferris game, someone did.
I don't know how you can be this bad, though. I get it's mostly underclassmen, but like seriously,
they're not bought in. Like we mentioned last week on our show, they're not bought in. Bad coaches and mostly bad players.
At the very least, fire a coordinator or two and pretend like you're going to change things.
Yeah. Well, on a different topic, both of our basketball teams are still undefeated. 3-0 apiece. Men's team is only undefeated team in the Gilead so far.
Hot take. Well, not really hot take. They're winning the Gilead.
Yeah, that's fair. We got a lot of...
what's just GVSU, the other good team?
Yes, and
I
Ferris.
think we'll win the Gilead.
Ferris, Grand Valley, and Northern are going to be battling for the top.
I think we'll win.
For the men's basketball. So...
Is that a fair take?
Yes, it is. We have a lot of really good, solid players all around. It's not like last year or the year before where we had one superstar player where like was Division I caliber. We have, I would argue, multiple Division I, at least low end Division I, mid tier Division I caliber players that could transfer but have decided not to for whatever reason, depending on the person.
Right.
But we could go. We'll definitely go far in the Gilead. We probably will go far in the NCAA tournament. We'll have to see
because we haven't made it past first or second round, have we?
Second
round, I don't think we have.
Not in a while, but
right. So I'd love us.
But postseason wins have occurred.
Right. I'd like us to get a couple.
Yeah.
I think that's a reasonable expectation to have.
Well, I know that if anyone who's listening or anything like that goes to the men's basketball social media pages, they have posted a clip where the last game when we played against Illinois Springfield, beat them 85-83 and a last second buzzer beater shot to win the game. And it's pretty fun to see. And what was funny was when one of the refs, he ran over like in front of our bench to like put one of his hands up to mark that it's a 3-point shot being made, to then put his other hand up that the shot was made, right? And the ref was supposed to be where he was supposed to be, but the shot was made, the buzzer went off right before the ball went in the net or in the hoop. And then next thing you know, the ref's gone, just completely disappeared because he got engulfed by all of our players. So I thought that was funny.
Sure is. Kudos to both teams, though. Starting 3-0 is a good achievement, especially with the schedules they've had. I think both of them are going to have relatively good seasons, but we'll see. So good stuff. Speaking of good stuff, volleyball also had a pretty solid season.
Yep. We are hosting Parkside on the 20th.
In the GLAC tournament.
The GLAC tournament. There is one thing I do want to look at for basketball just real quick. I want to see their schedule, but also the teams that we might be struggling against. So just hold on. Oh wait, no, that's wrong conference. The Great Lakes.
I still think even if we have a tough
I
schedule,
see.
the expectation, especially for the men's team, should
Yes.
be conference championship.
So, Morehead State and Minnesota Duluth are ranked programs.
Right.
So that will be a challenge. But Morehead State, we have a 35% chance for that, and Minnesota Duluth 22%.
I think they're underestimating our guys, but we'll see.
Upper Iowa, another another top school, 43% chance. That one's a home game.
I think we got a good shot against all these guys. So we'll really see once the season.
According to Macy ratings, we have a 100% chance of beating Northland. A poor, I'm talking about really bad D3 school, who lost all their games last year. We have a 45% chance beating Grand Valley at Grand Valley on January 4th. Favored to beat Tech. Favored to beat Roosevelt.
So realistically, we should be winning the conference
now. Ferris will give us some trouble on the January 23rd. We have a 32% chance on that one. So it's not like there's a game where we have.
But I think given the talent that we have, it's a realistic and I think
Mhm.
likely outcome.
Yeah.
And same with volleyball. I think we should at the very least win a game or two in the GLIAC tournament. We're not the strongest team in the GLIAC, but we are pretty good overall, and I expect good things from that.
But yep, once again, like it was last year, Grand Valley and Ferris are going to be
right. It's going to be tough for the
tough ones.
And it's going to be tough for the volleyball team too because they're really strong. We've got some awfully strong teams in this conference.
Yeah, we do.
And they've had a tough schedule this year. So
men's hockey tied with Minnesota State the other day, 1-1. It went into double overtime, and there still weren't any goals scored.
Wow. Okay.
But so yeah, we're currently 1 win, 10 losses, 1 tie, and I would like to note the game that we won was the only game I've been to so far.
Ironically, it's also the only game I've been to so far.
I might have to go to some more games, you guys.
Well, we'll see if it's you or me.
Yeah.
But yeah, 1-10-1. We knew this was going to be a tough season, the rebuilding year. And again, they've got the culture there. So I'm optimistic that in the next couple of years, they will turn it around once they get some of their own recruits in here and start to rebuild the program. Because obviously most of our players left and the program was not in the greatest place, at least I would argue, when he came in as new coach. We were kind of middle of the GLIAC at best under Grant. Maybe had 1 or 2 good years. So, program was in an okay place.
Yeah.
But obviously, when you have everybody except for one guy leaving the transfer portal, you have to rebuild from scratch. So I'm excited to see how they attack the transfer portal with some of the money that's coming in Northern Athletics. So we'll have to see. But again, even though we're 10-1 this year and the season's all but over already, it'll be exciting to see how we rebound in coming seasons.
And then on a separate note, while I was doing research for today's show, I was on the GLIAC conference website, and I think the GLIAC is wanting to start up some esports for their member schools.
As they should.
I don't know how that's going to work exactly, but that's just all behind the scenes stuff. Because I went on their website and just, mouse over the sports tab, go to winter. Apparently esports is a winter sport according to the GLIAC. But when I click on it, the only thing that shows up, and I think this is hilarious, the only thing that shows up is just one video that's titled 5 text effects for sports design. It's a Photoshop tutorial.
Well, clearly
I think they use as
the page.
They're working on the page. And I hope they know, or I hope they figure out soon that, hey, we all can see it.
That I think is funny. So they're working on that.
They're
I'm
probably
excited
working on the
to see
page, and
if the GLIAC creates an official esports league. I think would be really cool.
yeah.
And gives the esports team more support and more funding and more tournament opportunities. That I think would be a really good thing.
I know
esports
yes,
is a sport.
it is.
And it would be really great to see them get some more support.
And I know right now with our esports program, our Rocket League teams are doing fairly well.
Right, we've got a really good program.
As well as Rainbow Six Siege.
Interesting.
We have a Rainbow Six Siege guy who's currently undefeated so far. He's won 6 matches, I believe.
Nice.
So
good stuff there. I hope
yes.
the GLIAC can get working on that. And we'll keep you posted on if the GLIAC does do anything there. But definitely exciting developments for those of you, both of us included, who enjoy esports. I know Dom's a lot more involved in it than I am, but I do like to tune in occasionally to Rocket League and other streams. So, good stuff. Speaking of good stuff, I guess it's not so good stuff.
Well.
The state of Michigan and Michigan State football.
Yes.
Michigan State loses 38-16 against Illinois. They were close in the third quarter now.
They were.
They can pull this out, and then Illinois pulled away.
Yep.
They have to win out to be bowl eligible. Michigan, who was on bye, has to beat Northwestern to be bowl eligible.
Lost the bye.
Yeah, I guess we did.
Just like Florida State.
It's one of those things, though, where I think it's an interesting spot for both programs. I saw an article today. It was an MSU fan page, so take it with a grain of salt.
Okay.
But MSU fan page said something interesting that I want to bring up.
Sure.
So MSU fan page has said, this MSU fan page, the name of it I'm forgetting. I think it's Spartan Wire maybe, but I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
Anyway, they said that this season is proof that Michigan State brought in the right coach with development, with recruiting, with culture, and that Michigan did not. You know my opinion. You know I'm not happy with who we brought in. But you also know that I'm a little bit, and maybe it's my rivalry biases coming in, but I think I have a valid point here. I'm a little bit skeptical about Michigan State as well.
Okay. Yeah, I'm a little skeptical too. That's fair.
So I think it's a little bit crazy for a Spartan affiliated fan article. This is a big page. It's not just, Joe Schmo on Instagram.
Yeah, it's from USA Today.
Oh, it's in US Today now?
They're associated with USA Today.
Okay, so they're associated with USA Today. But I think it's crazy to try and insinuate that probably it's going to be a 5-win season, right, ish, is proof that you're going in the right direction. I mean, you have some decent players on your team. You're recruiting decent, but I don't think it's fair after one okay season to say that you are going to be good. One season is not a lot of time.
It's not.
Right? After, Harbaugh's first year at Michigan, people were like, ha, this experiment's hilarious. It's never going to work. Now, it took him forever, but it did.
Took them a long time until they got
Dan
Connor
Campbell's
Stallions,
first year.
Okay, we don't talk about that.
No, enough. Wasn't that. Because if you look at it, which, by the way, we'll get to another thing about Harbaugh in a minute. But anyway, you look at it people were like, Dan Campbell is terrible after year one. They were like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, we went three.
I think it was 3-12-1.
12-1. I know we had a tie against the Steelers.
Right, people were like, he's a terrible coach. It's never going to work. And now look where they are. So I just caution against, this is coming from a Michigan fan that's pissed off after a year.
Yes.
I caution against one-year judgments. I think the difference in Michigan's case is we are losing because of coaching.
Okay.
We are losing because of bad timeout and clock management. We are losing because the coordinators we hired are poor and we're not firing them as we should. We're losing because our assistants are not recruiting well that were hired by Moore and by Harbaugh. Right? It is because of coaching. I think Michigan State is doing okay, but I don't think you can say that coaching is all of a sudden going to propel them to great heights. That's a stretch. Jonathan Smith is an unknown. He wanted Oregon State in a pretty darn weak Pac-12. He won with DJU, so I guess that's credit to him because DJU is about to go to McDonald's and start serving fries because he's not a college quarterback.
I mean, I know a coach that worked at Applebee's for a hot minute. Dan Campbell.
But
for the ads.
Right. I guess my point being, though, is it's awfully cocky, I think, to jump to that conclusion this quickly. If a Michigan fan page came out and said, we are going in the wrong direction, Sharon sucks, okay, Our fan
Yeah.
base, I think that's a universally true fact. Great. But I think Michigan State trying to say that they're in this infinitely better place than we are is just objectively not true. Our recruiting classes
Mhm.
are better. We've got more NIL money. We're hitting the transfer portal harder.
Yeah, but player development isn't that
Well,
wasn't that the focus
yes,
of the
but
article?
coaching changes are going to change. Player development will come. Like, you can't just go Michigan permanent dumpster fire because 1 year a bad coach.
Okay.
Michigan State instantly good because 1 year bad coach. Like,
Okay.
I don't think that's a fair assumption. But since you brought up Jim Harbaugh, I want to bring up something interesting.
I did not bring up Jim Harbaugh.
Well, you
I
brought up Connor Stallions.
Which how is he doing so far in his high school coaching career?
Awful, but I don't think that matters because high school coaching is so volatile. You have guys that are
I wonder what he's trying to do. Is he like is
no
it is,
idea. He's just trying to capitalize off his.
Is he trying to make it's like his offensive scheme like super complicated and the players aren't just getting
I don't
it?
know,
Or?
but here's the important thing. I get the cheating allegations. I get it, but I want to bring up an important fact. Okay, at San Diego, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but they're on Twitter. If anyone wants to find them, they've been posted by a number of sources. If you look at his winning percentage and like his overall success and where he's been, San Diego is a bottom tier football program. He made them a top tier program, and I think to this day they still are.
Mm-hmm.
Stanford was pretty darn in the mud when he got there.
Yeah.
And he developed some quarterback. I don't know. He was kind of average for the Indianapolis Colts called Andrew Luck.
Yeah.
I believe
He's retired from the
CMC
NFL,
was,
right?
yes, I believe CMC was after Harbaugh's time, but he built the building blocks that made Stanford into a really solid Pac-12 team. They made the Rose Bowl. I think they lost to Michigan State, if I'm not mistaken, when Jim was there.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They had some good success.
Yes.
For a football team that never had really had success in the 21st century and really late 1900s as well. Obviously, with the admissions requirements and other hurdles.
And we're talking about
Stanford
Michigan.
has. No, Stanford.
Oh,
We'll get to
Stanford.
Michigan.
Okay.
So he brought Stanford into the 21st century, got him to a Rose Bowl, got him, I think they got a Pac-12 championship or a Pac-12 runner-up somewhere in there. Took a team well below 500 to a really successful Pac-12 team. And they continued that success under David Shaw for a few years, but like once Harbaugh left, they kind of tapered off, right? Okay. So then Jim goes to the 49ers, who had one of the worst records in the NFL the 10 years prior that he got there. Like one of the worst. They were a dumpster fire in the early 2000s. Comes in there with Colin Kaepernick, gets a good team, right? Makes that Super Bowl, arguably should have won, some bad luck, like an 110-yard kick return, right?
Which I recently saw an article that Jim Harbaugh with his new NFL team wants Colin Kaepernick to work with him.
I highly doubt
like
that.
As an assistant.
I highly doubt that purely for the controversy's sake. But point is, he went into San Francisco, built them into a winner, laid the building blocks for, I don't know who came after him, but then eventually Kyle Shanahan came after whoever that was. So built the building blocks to make San Francisco into a strong team, right? You had Frank Gore, you had some other guys, right? That team was pretty good. They easily could have won a Super Bowl with some better luck, and they had to deal with the Legion of Boom in the same division. So some rough luck there. But point is,
I love saying Legion of
built
Boom.
built them into a contender after they were terrible the past decade. He left, they fell back into mediocrity, and then Kyle Shanahan brought them out of it. But they were in mediocrity pre-Kyle Shanahan, post-Harbaugh, right?
Yes.
So you have winner at San Diego, took a bad team to a good one. Winner at Stanford, bad team to a good one. Winner at the Niners, bad team to a good one.
Yes.
Where did he go? Did he go to Michigan right after that?
I think so.
Okay, I think he did. Right? Michigan, prior to that, we had our worst 6 seasons, like 6 out of our 8 worst seasons in history. Right? Rich Rod and Brady Hoke were a disaster. You as a Michigan State fans know this quite well. But he goes in there, and he turns the program around.
After 6 years, but it took a while.
Well, no, we all in 20.
He couldn't be. He still couldn't
Well,
beat Urban Meyer.
I'm getting there. First couple years, right, was building the program. We made some decent bowl games. I think we won a Gator Bowl against like Florida or something in there.
Yep.
Maybe it was Alabama. I don't know. Somebody. We played somebody good and beat them. I don't remember who. 2016, I will take to my grave that JT was short, and that should have been our first Big Ten title.
Okay. Yep, I know what you're talking about.
You'll probably say JT wasn't short. And that's fine.
I don't care.
But arguably,
I get what you're saying.
We were good enough that year,
yes.
talent-wise. those refs were proven to be Ohio State alums. Okay.
Hmm.
So at the very least, a controversial ending to a season
Yes.
that probably we should have been the Big Ten champions. Should have been. Obviously, it didn't happen, but that year we were good enough to be Big Ten champions. So realistically, we could have won it in 3 years. And I think we would have won the Big Ten. We would have had an awfully good chance to do well in that 14 playoff. I don't know off the top of my head who was in that 14 playoff, but I think we could have done well. I don't know if we would have beat Alabama. I think it's who won the Natty that year, maybe Clemson. But we would have been good that year. So it would have been that year. We had, 3 more solid years. I'm excluding the COVID year because the COVID year, you had the Indiana fluke year and all kinds of other weird things
No, a lot of weird stuff.
because
Yeah.
it was a COVID year, so you had teams that couldn't play.
Went
certain
2-5,
games
right next to Michigan State.
Right, but the point is, it was a COVID year, and everybody
Yeah.
had some ups and downs, and it was a really weird year. And then obviously 21, 22, 23, you had the 3 Big Ten titles in the Natty, right? So took a little bit, and it did at Stanford and Niners too. Like, it's not an overnight thing.
If the COVID year didn't happen, and Michigan was as relatively bad as they were that year, do you think it would have been fired by that point? Because he was in the hot seat.
Should have been or would have been?
Both or either.
Would have been, potentially. Should have been, no.
Even if there was no COVID year, no COVID excuse.
Would have been, probably.
Because wasn't he in the hot seat by that point?
No.
And then they kind of like extended that hot seat
he was
because of COVID.
He wasn't necessarily on the hot seat per se. His seat was maybe warm
Okay.
because we weren't beating Ohio State, but I don't think anybody desperately wanted him gone. Like, the thought crossed my mind, but I wasn't like, fire this guy, fire this guy, fire this guy. No, I was like, it's fine.
So,
if
yeah.
COVID wouldn't have happened, and we still go like, we probably would have ended up like 4-7 realistically, or something along those lines, maybe 5-6.
So I'm just looking at Jim Harbaugh's record here. 04-06 San Diego.
Right.
Stanford.
Do you have the numbers pulled up for, I don't know if you can find the article, but there's an article online that will talk about the 5 to 10 years prior to when he got there, and then his record when he was there.
No, I don't have that.
See if you can find that while I'm talking, but...
well, I want to...
Yeah,
I wanted to just confirm what you said. Yeah, 07-010.
Right.
Stanford,
Yep.
and then immediately San Francisco from 2011-2014. I thought he coached longer.
Me too. That's a surprise.
Yeah.
And then he went to Michigan, right?
And then he went to Michigan 2015-2023. That was his
Yes.
longest coaching tenure,
Right.
and now he's in the Los Angeles Chargers.
Right. Go ahead and see if you can find that article kind of while I'm talking through Jim. But we'll get to why I think he's a topic, other than the fact that you brought up Connor Stallions and Michigan's controversy. But anyway, you get to 2023, their most talented team, obviously, to win the Big Ten title this year. You can argue the Connor Stallions thing, but you got to keep a couple factors in mind. Number one, Michigan had obviously won the prior 2 Big Ten championships without Connor Stallions. Right? There's no way that went on for 3 years, right? Somebody would have seen it. So that either started late 2022 or early 2023, if it even happened, right?
Well, did you watch the documentary?
I did not.
You should watch the
But
documentary.
it was not a 3-year thing. He had a plan, like Connor Stallions had a plan. It was not a 3-year thing. So that means regardless of what you think about 23, we had 2 legitimate Big Ten titles, which I would argue the 23 one is just as legitimate. But we had 1 back-to-back titles, right? So that team was good. The team got better because JJ developed, Corum developed, Edwards at the time developed, right? You had, I'll say this, a very lucky playoff, right? Probably the weakest 4-team playoff since the 4-team playoff was invented, and I don't think it's close. Maybe the Cincinnati year, but that Georgia team was a juggernaut.
Yes.
So, but I think easily the worst 4-team field, right? Bama had no business being there. It should have been FSU, whatever. It happened. It's done. Washington was probably the worst team to make a national championship in a very long time. No offense to Washington, but they were not that good of a team compared to like prime Alabama, prime Clemson, prime Ohio State, prime Georgia, right? I mean, they're better than like the TCU team that made the Natty, but they weren't world's greatest team in the Natty. Like, Michigan had an advantage at every position.
Prime Michigan State. Connor
Okay,
Cook.
Stop it.
Connor Cook's Michigan State was a pretty good Michigan State.
Enough.
You know that.
They were good.
You know
but
that.
Don't even try and say they were.
You know they were just outcoached by Alabama because Nick Saban is
Well, yeah, but
has
a lot
evil
of teams
magic.
have been outcoached by Nick Saban.
Has evil magic. It's hard to outcoach Nick Saban.
Well, we did it
when you've been an previous assistant of his.
That is true, but we did it. But the point I want to make is like you had a really talented team. You won 2 Big Ten titles that no one is arguing the legitimacy of the prior 2 years.
Yeah.
So you clearly had a good enough team to win a third. I would also argue that while stealing signs can give you a small advantage if they did it, I don't think it's significant enough to impact the outcome of games. Because if I remember correctly, we blew out that Ohio State team. Well, not blew out. I think we intercepted McCord on the last play. But we beat Ohio State, Penn State.
It feels like a blowout.
It felt like a blowout. We beat Ohio State, Penn State, and basically all the other actually good teams on our schedule.
Yeah.
Without even having our head coach, let alone Connor Stallions. So I think that the argument is moot.
Mm.
But regardless, you had Harbaugh, who had prior success, who turned around Michigan, right? You would agree that he turned around the program?
Jim Harbaugh?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but after 2020, or
Right,
before anything before 2020,
well, it wasn't. It was okay.
2021, 22, 23, 20.
It was more like a
though
shrub.
that was it's a tale. It's like a tale of two cities, right? It's you got first half Jim Harbaugh and second half Jim Harbaugh.
Well,
first half Jim
that's
Harbaugh.
not-
He's a good coach.
You're kinda
It's mid.
quoting-
The program's mid. He's a good coach. Second half Jim Harbaugh, Michigan turns into like insane,
Right.
like dangerous
I mean,
team.
that's the wrong
and
way
he
to
like
quote Tale of Two Cities.
and he becomes like something completely different.
I get what you mean, but to better quote A Tale of Two Cities, his first half was the best of times and the worst of times. We were good, but also terrible. Then we got to the greatest of times, even though that's not in the book. But point being,
Although 2018 Michigan was pretty good.
well, you had a really good 2018 team that just dropped late to Ohio State, and I believe that was the year that Iowa upset us late.
Mm-hmm.
Could be mistaken. 2016, I would argue.
It was pretty good.
2016 and 2018, I would argue. 2016 for sure should have been Big Ten champions.
Yeah.
2016,
But you lost to Ohio State.
Well, I would argue 2016 was cheated. But
and then lost to Florida.
Well, that was after.
Yeah.
But I would argue 2016 should have won the Big Ten title. So, yes. Did it end icky? Was the result unfortunate? Yes. But the talent was there, the players were there, the team was better. I think we had 10-win seasons at least, like every one of those seasons. So
But it felt different.
He had
After-
turned the team around.
After
but not to
COVID,
that
it
degree.
felt different.
Well, I think things changed. You finally got a quarterback that could run your system. You got elite running backs, and we switched from kind of not a pass-heavy offense, but
Yeah.
like a mix to just pound.
I mean, 2021's Michigan only lost 2 games. One in the regular season. Do you know who?
Yes, we know it was you. You were good that year, though. Isn't that the year that Kenneth Walker won you like the Sugar Bowl?
Yes.
So you were good that year.
And then 2022 went undefeated, but then lost to TCU.
Right.
But it's just as an outsider looking in, 21, 22, 23
Well, they were.
feels different
They were.
than previous years.
Because
even
he
though
got
the
the
win-loss
COVID
record
year.
wasn't that far.
He
apart.
got the COVID year
Yeah.
to think about how to redefine the team's identity. And he
Yeah.
made us a ground and pound, run heavy,
Yeah.
screw conventional modern football. We're going back to basics, fundamental football, right? We stopped being penalized. We stopped turning the ball over, right? When that worked, which was like 99% of the time, I'd say the only time in 21, 22, and 23 it didn't work was against TCU because we turned the ball over like 4 times. And realistically should have won that game.
Do you know what the other rumor was? The
What?
reason why you guys lost to TCU
What's that?
is because in your guys' supposed cheating science
God.
stealing cheating scandal,
I heard about this.
that the team of people who were involved in doing all that did not anticipate TCU to be where they were, so they didn't steal any other signs.
See, I think sign stealing is bad. Like, don't get me wrong, and I think there should be measures taken to prevent it. But I also think the effect of sign stealing on this run is heavily, heavily over-exaggerated.
Yeah.
Right? Alabama has been busted a million times giving recruits cards pre-NIL.
I know.
And you're telling me
there was
that's...
There was
right.
a movie about that.
But you're telling me that's not a bigger
yeah.
deal. You are literally bribing recruits. Like, I think that's a much bigger issue.
It is.
And we get suspended over a cheeseburger. Like, I'm sorry.
I'm with you on that. But I will let you know, it was the cover-up, not the crime, that got him in trouble.
Regardless, it's a little unfair.
Yes.
And I think
Buying
it's a really
a recruit
convenient...
cheeseburger should not be a penalty.
But I think it's a really convenient
That's
excuse
ridiculous.
to go, well, sign stealing every time Michigan is brought up as being a good team.
I mean, it is. It's just
Is it
a fact
is
of
it
life.
a fact? Like, did it happen?
Yes.
Probably. But did it...
Watch the documentary.
But
I
without...
think it's on Netflix.
Without sign stealing, do I still think we would have won the Natty? You bet I do.
Yeah. Well,
because, again,
yeah.
we beat Penn State, Ohio State, Alabama, Washington. There was a couple other teams, too. I think the MSU game was also no signs, but MSU was a dumpster fire at that point.
Well, yeah,
Point
because our
is-
coach got fired.
Okay, maybe you did steal signs. Fine. Hypothetically. Congratulations. You used sign stealing to beat Nebraska, Bowling Green.
Ohio State.
No, because Ohio State was after that.
Oh,
We didn't even have our head coach for that game.
Oh.
Remember, Moore was in for that game.
yeah.
But the
Okay.
point is,
That doesn't change anything.
right? But it shouldn't be the legacy of Harbaugh. And it shouldn't be the legacy
know.
of that team because
It
Harbaugh built the
shouldn't,
program
but
from the
it's
ground
going
up.
to be.
It might be.
It's going to be a dark mark on the program for decades to come.
Well, yeah, but there's so many dark marks on other programs.
That's true.
Penn State's got
That's true.
Joe Paterno.
Yep.
Michigan State's got Larry Nassar.
Yep.
Like,
Oh, I still see those comments.
but it's interesting
On
to me
social media.
though how much we outplay Michigan.
Ohio
sign
State
stealing.
with the ring selling thing that
right.
got like the coach
But
fired.
it's crazy to me that we talk about Michigan sign stealing so much.
Yeah.
And these other dark clouds that, in my opinion, because they impacted people's lives,
Yeah.
are much darker. They kind of get downplayed and not talked about, right? The punishments for them were, I think, a lot lesser than they could have and should have been. Meanwhile, you're talking about derailing an entire program for sign stealing, and you're letting these other coaches that have done, sexual
Yeah.
assault and different things.
It's
get away with it.
There's a double standard out there.
I just think that's crazy. But
that
I
being
don't want to get
said-
into it too much. It's a little bit of a
I didn't want to
tough
interrupt you.
topic,
We'll probably go to another topic. But for anyone who is just joining us, this is WUPX 91.5 FM HD1 Marquette. This is the Jack and Tom radio show. I always like to say the Jack and Tom radio
Why?
show.
To rub in the Ohio State?
Yeah, a little bit.
But I think, okay, I want to get back to that and then I'll wrap up the point. Fine, if you want to stay at sign stealing, like, I don't think I can change Ohio State and Michigan State fans' minds. I would say, like, America unbiased opinions are relatively divided on this.
Yeah.
I think a lot of more football people, Joel Klatt and others that I have a lot of respect for, realize that Michigan won because of the talent.
Yes.
Maybe it was 5% sign stealing, but the talent and Jim were, I would argue, 95+% of it. Right? In my opinion, and maybe it comes out in the next decade, maybe it doesn't. I guarantee you almost every top team has done this.
Yeah.
And after Michigan did it,
And I think they
just went-
share information.
Right,
too.
they do. Michigan did, I believe, share information supposedly with South Carolina and a couple other teams.
Okay.
But point being, I guarantee you that other national championship winners have done this. And it will never come out because either they just did it better or they paid somebody off to not do it. So I would argue that the NCAA should take steps to prevent this from happening in the future
Yeah.
by actually adapting, in-helmet technology they should have had 3 decades ago.
Yes.
Then we wouldn't have ever had to have this conversation. But again, you beat Alabama, Washington, Penn State, Ohio State, right? All those teams fair and square. And so I think,
I want to bring up a different topic.
can I wrap up this one really quickly? So,
We only have like 15
well,
minutes.
the reason I brought up Jim Harbaugh, other than you mentioning Connor Stallions, is he did it again, right? I talk about him changing the culture, and I talk about how important culture is. And he goes to Los Angeles, a team that last season lost more one-score games than I could count on my hands. It felt like they lost every game by a score.
Yep.
right? That team was poorly coached, poorly disciplined, not a great team. They made one playoff game, and if I remember correctly, that was the one where Jacksonville came back and won after they were down by an absurdly large number in the first half. Like, it was historic. And now they're 7-3. They just won a one-score game against the Bengals that they really should have lost. And it's further proof that wherever he goes, he develops a winning culture.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, I think that legitimizes the Michigan thing, but I just think it's good to talk about because
Yeah,
it's really crazy
they're
to me how,
7-3 right now.
right, in half a season, I think that team actually got worse talent-wise because you unloaded, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, right, their star players, Austin Eckler. You got worse talent-wise, and yet he built a culture in half a season where things are different. They're optimistic, they're buying in, they think they can win one-score games. I wouldn't be surprised if they won a playoff game or two, right? And that's happened at San Diego, at Stanford, at San Francisco, at Michigan, and now in LA. And in my opinion, he will end his career, hopefully with the Super Bowl. I don't know if that'll happen, but
No.
one
The
of the
Lions
greatest.
will smoke.
Well, they won't ever
No.
make it to the Super Bowl, but one of the greatest, in my opinion, overall football coaches of all time.
Okay.
And another point that this a separate article from the Michigan State one made, I think this was a Michigan one, is that I think given how bad Michigan was when he started there and how well he turned it around, they made the case, I would disagree at this part, that he was the only coach that could do that. I disagree with that. But I do think very few coaches could have gone in there and done what he did. Is that fair? And that he was the majority of the reason
Probably
why
yes.
they won.
Yeah. I would argue that a winning culture alone doesn't win games, but but in order to win a lot of games, you do need a
They
winning
needed
culture.
that. That's what they lacked.
It's
They
really
had the
hard.
talent. Like Brady Hoke recruited well.
It's
had the
really
talent,
hard to
but-
brute force wins with a losing culture.
Right.
On a different topic, I just want to talk about this for a minute, because I didn't put this on the show sheet. It just came to mind. Did you watch the Jake Paul Tyson fight?
I'm told it was really big letdown that Jake Paul beat him easily. I don't know how much I want to harp on it. I mean, I'm not a UFC guy. I mean, I'm told it was a boring fight. But
Well, what should have been obvious to everyone, because apparently 85% of people who were betting on the boxing match bet on Mike Tyson.
it's that he's not in his prime.
He's not in his prime and he's an old guy.
Right.
And that even though you might see clips of him sparring and him going really, really fast,
It's different in a real fight.
it's different in a real fight because you have to take
You
defense
gotta
into
really
consideration.
think quickly and react. Okay. I don't want to harp on that too much just because I think
If I bet, like Jake Paul was plus 285 that match,
Right.
and he easily won.
Yeah. I mean,
So
it
should
have been obvious. It wasn't,
I will say Netflix did not do the best job
No,
at
and I don't
streaming
think
the site.
like
That was
don't
like the other half of
yeah.
everyone talking about.
Yeah,
the
I
match.
just don't think though that UFC is as big as it used to.
It's not. I don't think it's UFC. It's just boxing.
Well, like the sport of boxing
Yeah.
and UFC and like all of the like fight mania, whatever you want to
Mm-hmm.
call them, I don't think they're as big as they used to be either. I think that market is a lot smaller than people think.
Well,
I might be wrong.
you have on here
I do. I got the
Michigan
records.
basketball. What do you
and
want?
the Michigan basketball too.
What do you want to talk? What do you want to bring up?
I just wanted to bring up kind of how Michigan basketball has started the new regime. We are currently playing against Miami, Ohio in a tight one, 32-30, although I expect us now 33-30. I expect us to pull away shortly, but Miami, Ohio is a pretty good Group 5 team, so we'll see. Assuming we win that game, we will start the season 3-1 with a great win over a good TCU team and a 2-point loss to a very strong Wake Forest team. So a strong start for us. We also pulled in recently a 5-star recruit out of Michigan, beating of all teams. You guessed it, Michigan State.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really good as a Michigan fan with the football team in a state of flux. See the basketball team recruiting best in-state players, looking really strong. Really, really great to see with our new coach. And I know Michigan State has had its struggles at the beginning of the season too.
Yeah.
Obviously dropping to Kansas, not a struggle, right? We saw that coming.
Yeah.
But having a massive scare to Bowling Green is not a great look to start the season for them. And
Red Wings. What do you want to? You have Red Wings.
I'm going to go really quick.
Yes, because I want to talk about Lions.
We'll
Let's
get
go.
there. But you have a whole bunch of undefeated teams. You got Penn State, Wisconsin, Iowa, Purdue, Oregon, Illinois, Indiana, Rutgers, all undefeated, all looking like really good teams. So whether you're Michigan, Michigan State, whoever, it's going to be not necessarily the best conference, but it's going to be a deep conference. And so Michigan and Michigan State, Michigan right now against Miami, Ohio, and Michigan State against Samford, really need to clutch up and get some big wins. But yeah, real quick, Red Wings really struggling in real free fall right now, sitting at 7-9-1, 7th place in the Atlantic. They just dropped back-to-back games to the Ducks and Kings, and they are playing the Sharks tonight. If you lose to the Sharks, you might as well just end the team because the Sharks are really the bottom feeders of the NHL. But for a team that was supposed to get into the playoffs and at least compete, we're just not really seeing the development that we expect. So disappointing there. On the other hand, crazy that I say these two words in the same sentence, Pistons, pleasant surprise. Now, the last
Those
time
are
I
three
said...
words. You say 2 words or 3 words?
Okay, fine. 3
Okay.
words. Pistons and pleasant. There,
Okay.
I see 2 words. But the last time I talked about the Pistons being good was last year when we started 2-1. Then we went on one of the most historic losing streaks of all time. So maybe I should shut my mouth and not talk about this.
Yeah.
But we played the Bulls
I
right
remember
after the
last
show.
year.
Yep. We play the Bulls right after the show, but we're 7-8, right in the middle of the pack, with a new coach, Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey, looking really good. They're surrounded by some quality veteran players. Malik Beasley has been playing great. Jalen Duren continues to develop. Tobias Harris was a nice signing. I said this last year. I'm going to say it again, and hopefully I'm right this time. I don't think it's a stretch to say we make the play-in tournament.
Okay.
We've looked good, and I think we'll continue to. Again, I said this last year, and I got burned. But I think we're finally on the upswing. And, as a Pistons fan, it's really nice to see it because we've been absolutely disastrous for the past decade plus. So, really good news there. But the best news of all are Detroit Lions. That's a terrible
I know. Well, I'll have to work on that. Obliterated the Jaguars 52-6.
Couple
No
fun
punts.
statistics there. Yeah,
No
punts.
punts. 645 total yards, which is a franchise record, and scored every possession except for the last one because they burned down the clock and needed the
Yeah,
ball.
even Hendon Hooker looked good.
Yes, our backups looked pretty solid.
The craziest thing about this game to me is Jared Goff is now the first quarterback to have multiple games of 400-plus yards, 4-plus touchdowns, and a 158-plus passer rating.
Yes.
They broke their franchise record for yards.
Yes.
And easily could have had 700 if they didn't kneel it out. So that was insane. It is Jacksonville's biggest loss of all time.
Yes.
Quick quiz question for you, though. I don't know if you've been paying attention to the media this week. Who did Jacksonville have their biggest prior loss to?
I brought this up to you before the show. It was the
wasn't listening.
Lions.
Yes, it was the Lions.
You were probably listening to music in your headphones.
I was. But crazy to think that is Jacksonville's biggest loss in franchise history.
Yes.
I'm sure they'll be having some regime changes over there shortly. But Detroit is now the undisputed number 1 team in the country, especially with the Chiefs' loss.
And with the significantly better point differential, even though the Chiefs have the same record, the Lions are ahead by the Chiefs because of that point
Something
differential.
I saw, though, is the Bills' point differential is very similar to ours.
Yes.
And the Bills have had I would say, equally easy schedule, except for obviously KC. But I know you brought up the point that some sportscasters have been saying stuff about the Lions that I push back against a little bit.
Okay, so it's not just my words. I've been asking around, especially a lot of older people who might remember some of these older teams.
They aren't that old. Come on.
But numbers-wise, whether it be point differential, yards, blowing out bad teams, right? They're not playing to their level. They're blowing out bad teams. They're blowing them out.
As you call it, belt to ass.
Yes. Belt to ass. Just all game long against bad teams.
Right.
A lot of people are wanting to put the 24 Lions on the same list as the 72 Dolphins, the 84-89 49ers, the 85 Bears, the 91 Redskins, the 92 Cowboys, the 99 Rams, aka the best show on turf, the 2000 Ravens, or the 07 Patriots.
What do you think about this? Because you already know my opinion, and I'll say it in a second.
Well, I mean, with how things are going so far right now, because we have only gone through 10 games, they are on pace of reaching the same numbers in regards to point differential, yards, win, things like that, compared to these other magnificent...
But do you think we're as good as those teams, and do you think we'll end?
Do I think so? Yes.
So are we winning a Super Bowl then?
Yes.
Okay, because all these teams, I believe, maybe
except for the 07 Pats won their Super Bowl.
Right, 07 Pats were undefeated in the regular season. So.
Yes, but they were also blowing out teams.
Here's why I push back against this. For starters, our defense, well, very improved, is
it's
not
really good, though.
The 2000 Ravens, which I would argue is a top 5 defense of all time.
Yes.
The 85 Bears, which I would argue is the best defense of all time. And some of these other defenses, the Niners defenses in the 80s, were very elite. 72 Dolphins went undefeated for a reason, right? So I would push back against that for now. I think the key here is this. The problem with playing this good against bad teams and being compared to these teams is the pressure was already there, but now it's really on. But one of two things could happen. You win the Super Bowl. Let's say you're a 2 or 3 loss team, maybe even 4 in the regular season. Given we have 17 games versus the Dolphins, like 14. So we're playing more games. The league is more balanced, right? It's harder. But if we go like 13-4, 14-3, and we do win the Super Bowl, and we continue the metrics that we currently are at, I think an argument can be made that it would be, if we win the Super Bowl, one of the top 3 greatest teams of all time. I don't think you're better than the 72 Dolphins. I don't think you're better than the 85 Bears. Maybe not the 2007 Pats. But you'd at least be top 4.
Okay, but you're on the list. That's what I'm saying. Are we on the list?
You're not on that list, though, until you do it.
Okay.
Analytics and metrics and how many points...
Because according to the analytics and metrics, we're on pace with the 99 Rams.
But I don't think on pace matters.
I think it does.
I think
it's a good way.
I don't think something will go wrong, but something could go wrong.
I mean, there's a reason. There's a reason why we're not putting the Chiefs on this list,
right? And I understand
because the point differential is so narrow.
I understand that we are better than the Chiefs, but I think it's premature to start grouping us with the best teams of all time until it happens. If we keep up these metrics and we win a freaking Super Bowl, which I still think is impossible, but let's say we somehow do it. The talent's there, the coaching's there.
Yes.
We can overcome that stupid curse.
Which we did.
You could argue Peyton Manning did. But
yes, we did. The curse is over.
I will believe it when I see it. But point is, you go and you win a Super Bowl. Then you're in the conversation. But I don't think it's fair to have that kind of conversation until you do it.
Okay.
Or... in the 07 Pats case, if you're going on an undefeated run like never seen before.
Yeah, that was ridiculous.
I would argue we should have beat the Bucs.
I was a little kid. I was a kid. I still remember that.
We should be at that point. We should have beat the Bucs. But we're not.
The Madden game, that was it was a cheat code to use that team because they were just straight up ridiculous.
See, we should have been at that point. We should have beat the Bucs. But we're not. So I think it's premature to use those analytics. But I think if you do win the Super Bowl, you're in that conversation as one of the best of all time. Especially because the difference between this and these other teams is all of these other teams prior to these teams. So by that I mean like the 71 Dolphins, the 70 Dolphins, etc., the 06 Pats, the 91 Cowboys, whatever.
Yeah.
They had success. Franchise history. Lions have never had success, ever. We came close last year. But
there was some success in the early 90s.
Not really. Our greatest success was getting blown out like 41-7 in the NFC Championship game, the one time we made it. Yeah. We've won Dan Campbell won more playoff games in 1 year than we've won in our history, okay?
Yes.
It's bad. So the point is, since the creation of the NFL,
as we know, the modern NFL,
when NFL, we'll go NFL,
because the Lions
AFL,
were good in the 30s
we'll say
and
NFL,
50s.
AFL merger, okay?
Super Bowl era.
The Lions, other than last year, which was under the same administration and same players, have had no history. I think even Jacksonville and Houston had more playoff wins than us, okay?
Yes.
No history. So if you do go out And after the year you made it to the NFC Championship, which, by the way, the Niners are probably not going to make the playoffs this year. So your demon might not even
They're
be there.
last in their division. They're
Right.
last in their
Your
division.
demon's not even going to be there. The best teams in the NFC right now are the Eagles, which I think are beatable, and your own division rivals, which you've already proven you can beat. So the field is tailor-made for you to finally do it. If you do it, that you've changed around a team like never before. Like, that is a transformation we've never seen, right? There's no other franchise in NFL history that's turned around, in my opinion, to that degree. Yeah, every bad team eventually wins a Super Bowl and gets good, right? You got to start back. But to this level, 70 years of mediocrity, of awful teams, of nothing to hang your hat on. If you then go out and you destroy the analytics, you're one of the best analytical and metric teams of all time, and you win a Super Bowl against that history and those odds,
Yes.
then yes. But each of these teams had a special defining characteristic, and I'm struggling to see what the Lions is. So let me explain.
Okay.
The 72 Dolphins went undefeated. That was their defining characteristic. But they
Yep.
also had some ballers on that
They
team.
did.
They had like 10 Hall of Famers.
You don't go undefeated in the NFL
Right.
without
They
exceptional
had an elite
players.
run game, an elite quarterback, an elite defense. Okay,
Yes.
but they were undefeated. That's their calling card. 84 and 89.
That was
Who you
Joe
had?
Montana,
You had Joe Montana
and Steve Young.
the two best quarterbacks of the pre-friendly quarterback era.
Yeah.
Right? They were the best at throwing the ball before it became sexy to throw the ball.
Yeah,
That was their trademark.
they were. Wasn't it Joe Montana the GOAT before?
Correct. Joe Montana was the
Tom
GOAT.
Brady.
And he
Yeah.
played in an era where it was harder to be the GOAT.
Yeah.
So they had one of the best QBs of all time. The 85 Bears, best defense of all time. 91 Redskins, I think, just were a great all-around team, a good defense, and I believe that was the first team that won a Super Bowl with an African-American quarterback. Right?
Mhm.
So you had a cultural aspect there. That was a big thing for the African-American community. But you also had one of the best defenses in NFL history, again, right? As you can see here, it's a trend. Defense wins championships. 92 Cowboys, right? You had, was that Troy Aikman?
Yes, Super Bowl winners.
So you had Troy Aikman. You had...
We are running out of time. I see someone's trying to call you.
I got time. He can wait. It's one of those things where each of those teams had a calling card, right? The 99 Rams, you had Kurt
The greatest
Warner.
show on turf.
Well, you had the greatest show on turf, but you also had Kurt Warner, a guy who was stocking grocery shelves,
Yes.
who came and won him a Super Bowl. You had Wade Phillips, and you had a number of other guys.
Yes.
But the big thing there was the greatest show on turf.
Ooh.
You had that great elite offense. The 2000 Ravens, you had a stifling defense.
Oh gosh, it was like going through molasses.
Right, it was a brick wall.
Yes.
So there's that. And then the 07 Pats, you had Tom Brady, the greatest QB of all time. You had an absolutely loaded roster top to bottom.
Oh yeah.
Now,
Well, it was
The
what
Lions-
it was what to kill for.
oh, absolutely. The Lions, now,
It took you a second. It took you a
Lord,
second.
yeah, oh, God. But the point is, like, the Lions are incredible. But I don't see that one defining trait. Maybe it's just the culture, and maybe it's just the well-roundedness of the team. But those teams had something other than just a metric that they were the all-time best or one of the all-time best at doing. The Lions' offense is great.
Oh,
It
it's
really
great.
is. But all-time best, I think, is a bit of a stretch until you go to a Super Bowl. Right?
Well,
So I think maybe it's just because it's the Lions. But I think it's a wait and prove it to me rather than you're already one of the best ever.
Well, I know it's coming to the end of the show, but you know what happens once the Lions win the Super Bowl?
Yeah, we're shaving our heads.
We're
baby.
shaving our heads. All right. Well, this was WUPX 91.5 FM H21 Marquette. Please stay safe out there. Please stay warm. We will see you guys next week.
All right. See ya.